Thank you for standing by. At this time, all participants will be in listen-only mode for the duration of today's call. There will be a question and answer session. To ask a question during that time, please press star one. Today's conference is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. Please continue to stand by. Conference will begin momentarily. Thank you. Thank you for standing by. At this time, all participants will be in a listen-only mode until the question and answer portion of today's call. During that time, if you would like to ask a question, please press star one. Today's conference is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. Please continue to stand by. Your conference will begin momentarily. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for your patience. We know we're getting started just a few minutes late. This is Karen Fox with NASA's Office of Communications at headquarters in Washington, D.C. We are here today to have a media telecon to discuss the results of the Independent Review Board on Psyche. And many of you will have participated, listened in on the larger WebEx we just had with a large segment of the science community. That WebEx will be posted live very shortly too, so you will be able to refresh your memory and look at that. Because of the larger time spent dedicated to sharing the report there, we are not going to do a long-term explanation here, though we will have just a couple minutes of presentations before we give the bulk of the time over to questions. We have 4 speakers on the line. Thomas Zurbuchen, the Associate Administrator for Science here at NASA headquarters in Washington. We have Lori Leshin, the Director of the Jet Propulsion Lab in Southern California. Lori Glaze, the Director of the Planetary Sciences Division at NASA headquarters, and Tom Young, who chaired the Independent Review Board that produced the report that we are talking about today. You may also find that report and NASA's response at nasa.gov/reports. So that is available there. And with that, Thomas and then Lori Leshin, why don't I hand to you for just a couple minutes introduction, and then we will move to questions. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much, Karen. What I really want to say that at NASA, we're always willing to take an unflinching view of what we do. And sometimes it can be difficult, but it's part of our history of success, and that is that we learn from our mistakes and we don't shy away from them. And I just want to tell you that history, JPL has a history of doing phenomenal things, especially, I've seen that in the last 6 years or so, whether it's 2 landings on Mars, whether it's, making major milestones and keeping them being, moving forward in a variety of missions, including, one that we're going to launch before the end of the year. The success is because of the fact that we're willing to look at this. So I look forward to the questions, to go look at multiple aspects of this important review, for which I've already thanked Tom for, but I'll do so again. Lori, back to you.
Thanks, Thomas. Hi, everyone. It's Lori Leshin from JPL. You're going to have 2 Tom and Thomases and 2 Loris on the call today, so we'll try and identify ourselves. Again, I joined Thomas in thanking Tom Young for the work, as well as that full IRB, which included several JPLers, by the way, and they worked incredibly hard to help us understand the issues and concerns that were Psyche-specific and also that were more broadly applicable to JPL as an institution. They definitely found impacts of COVID on the Psyche-specific issues, and we're really trying to learn from this moment and move forward and really positively. And we're doing that in great collaboration with our colleagues at headquarters. So happy to take some of your questions and look forward to moving forward with the IRB's consultation in hand.
Thank you so much, Thomas and Lori Leshin. That was Thomas Zurbuchen and Lori Leshin. I will try to use last names, given the 2 Loris and the 2 Thomases. We will be answering both questions from the media here, and there were a number of questions from the WebEx before that we didn't get to, and I'll probably alternate a little bit between both, but we're going to start with our media on the line. A reminder to hit *1 if you wish to get in the queue, and I will also ask you to introduce yourselves when I call on the next speaker. So we will start with our first media question now. And that is going to be Ken Chang with the New York Times.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. So listening to this, 2 things sort of struck me. One is sort of echoes from what came out after Polar Lander and Climate Orbiter, that that the JPL was trying to do too much with not enough people. And the second thing is that one of the takeaways from this is basically more middle managers, which is sort of counter from what what NASA often hears is that it's too big, too slow, too wedded to the way of doing things the old way. So I was wondering how you can sort of move forward doing new innovative things without, compromising success or being worried that you're going to not do something right. Thank you.
I would think that there are several people who might want to weigh in on that. Lori Leshin, I assume you're one of them, and Thomas, you might have something to say as well.
Sure, I can do that, and then hand over to Thomas as well. I think you pulled on a really important point, Ken. So thank you for that. Look, I think for me, a lot of this is about making sure we've got, we have a decent structure. We can always make it better, but we've got to make sure our managers are focused on the right things. And I think some of the staffing challenges, which were really exacerbated during the pandemic, meant they were spending a lot more time trying to figure out staffing challenges, and that can lead to some issues in them being able to do the technical oversight that we expect of them as well. And so that, to me, is a really important thread to pull on here. So it's not that we need more, it's that we need to make sure that people understand their roles and responsibilities and are doing that effectively. And I think your second point is a really good one as well. I think we have to be willing to re-examine our processes and make sure that we are doing the highest value things as we're doing oversight of our projects, that we're looking at the right metrics, that we're examining them in the right ways, and that is definitely going to be a part of our response as well. And that does allow us to be more innovative. And oh, by the way, on some of those smaller projects are the places we can really innovate around our processes, and that's one of the values of doing a variety of projects, from the big flagships like Clipper all the way down to, the Lunar Trailblazer size things. That allows us to innovate around our processes more. Thomas, do you want to jump in at all?
Well, look, the difference between the projects that you're mentioning, Ken, and where we are today is that we're taking the earliest opportunity to learn and really take a hard look before we create, failures in missions, which is really what we wanted to do here. I want to remind you that, of course, JPL, analyzing Psyche and analyzing the progress themselves, identified that they cannot be successful, and so we did not get to a launch and create a potential problem of the type that you're mentioning. I want to say that I also believe that the path forward, of course, is one of hard work and really learning, and will include training in some of the segments there, hiring perhaps, but also different work modalities that are enabled by partners that are there. I think we have committed to JPL, and I do so now, that we will work together and make sure that in fact assignments that we're sending to JPL are in fact manageable by the center, and that we can keep delivering on the highest priorities for the center, which is why we have them, which are Clipper and Mars sample return, which is where our focus is now. So because of the fact that, of course, Tom Young did some of these reviews of these missions in the past, I'll invite him and just see whether he wants to add another comment.
Thank you, Thomas. Yes, as you mentioned, I actually did chair the review of the Mars 98 activities that the question referenced. The circumstances were different. Basically, the Mars 98 activity was a highly constrained activity in terms of launch vehicle, in terms of science requirements, in terms of cost, in terms of schedule. And so the project only had one area that was flexible to them. That was risk was really the only contingency, and the project kept taking risk until it became insurmountable. The difference between actually that and Psyche was that if you look back on Mars 98, they should have never been launched. They really weren't ready. It was Psyche, as I think has been mentioned, the people involved really deserved a lot of credit for the fact that it takes some courage to say you're not ready to launch, but launching when you're not ready is probably the worst of the circumstances you can have. So I'm very complimentary of people who had the courage to say we're not ready. to launch. So there were different circumstances. The second part of the question is that we really didn't recommend more middle management or managers. We really said that we had to have managers who had the necessary experience to execute a program with the complexity and challenges of Psyche. So thank you very much for your question.
Thank you so much. We will move on to our next question from the media line, that is Marcia Smith with Space Policy Online.
Thank you so much. I think this is probably to Lori Glaze and maybe Thomas. Could you talk about, in more specific terms, the budget impact of this? You're going to delay Veritas for 3 years to get the money to pay for this, so how much money is that? And in terms of the impact on the planetary science budget overall, there's another project you already proposed delaying, the NEO Surveyor, and Congress wanted you to put that back in or make sure the launch was still around 2026. So will this also mean that you cannot put back in the money for NEO Surveyor?
Hi, Marcia. You're breaking up pretty hard there, but I think I heard most of your question. This is Lori Glaze, and I'll try and address some of it, and I'm sure Thomas will want to chime in as well. Let me start with the NEO Surveyor part of your question. You are right; it has been delayed. That was owing to the budget shortfall we have in 23. We are working with the team and believe we have the resources to get them to a launch in 2028. That's what we're working toward. They have not made it to confirmation yet, so that's all still when they complete their key decision point C for confirmation is when the final budget for that will be established and we get the schedule lined out. As far as the overall cost, there is an increased cost to the division budget in order to support the development of Psyche. As I said, Veritas is going to contribute. The Veritas delay will contribute to that, but additional funding will also be needed on top of that. And I don't have the numbers on my fingertips, but we may be able to provide those to you separately. But the Veritas delay is also beyond just in this year, and those development costs will also offset the costs in the coming years as well for Psyche and other parts of the portfolio.
Nothing to add.
Great, thank you so much. We will move on to our next question from the media. It is Jeff Faust with Space News.
Good afternoon. I'm curious how the findings and recommendations from the independent review will be applied to other JPL-led missions or other missions with a substantial JPL contribution to ensure that you don't run into similar problems with those missions. And then also maybe for Thomas, are there any plans to do similar reviews at other centers that are involved with science missions to see if there are also similar issues with some of the same management, hybrid work, so on factors that was found at JPL? Thanks.
So, Jeff, thanks for that. This is Lori Leshin. I can jump in on the first part and then pass over to Thomas for the second part, if that's all right. Yeah, so it's a great question. And, of course, we're absolutely taking seriously the need to look sort of through the lens of the Psyche findings at our other missions. In fact, at a recent Europa Clipper quarterly, we were having exactly this conversation with our colleagues at headquarters. And so those are things like making sure we have the insight and oversight we need, making sure our staffing is appropriate and stable. It's, making sure that the teams are working together in appropriate ways. So we are going to be working through each and every one of our projects, and especially the big ones like Clipper and Mars Sample Return, to make sure the lessons learned are appropriately applied. That's a big piece of our go-forward work here.
And Jeff, in regards to other centers and other work organizations, we've already reached out to all the centers. We've actually invited them to go participate in the briefing that you just listened to, Jeff, and we've actually actively are in active discussions with both Goddard and APL to just kind of figure out whether there are ways to we should actually do something from the headquarters side. Not all things need to be directed from headquarters. By the way, we have seen active interest also from our industrial partners. Many of them have told us that they have observed, unfortunately, similar issues in a variety of their own activities and are trying to figure out what the systemic reasons really are for it. So I believe it's broader than just NASA centers, but also goes into the other partnerships, Jeff. So we're looking at it actively, have not made a decision as to whether we're driving something from headquarters other than project-specific reviews, which we'll do in 100% of the cases.
Thank you so much. As a reminder to media on the line, you can get in the queue to ask a question by hitting *1. As I mentioned at the beginning, we had some questions from the larger webinar we just had that we were not able to get to there, and I do want to bring a few of them up here because I think it's important that we answer those questions for the community. So one of the questions that I'm consolidating here, there were a number of questions about changes being made to staffing at JPL. The questions incorporated such things as has anyone stepped down, as well as have people been added, and what are the plans in terms of hiring new staff and retaining experienced staff. So that's several questions pulled together. Lori Leshin, I'll start with you on that one.
Thanks, Karen. Yes, we have many plans in place and have already made a lot of moves. So let me try to give you a few points. Leadership at all levels, at the Psyche project level, at the planetary science directorate level, and at the lab level, have all changed since the time of the Psyche pre-ship review and such. So I asked Matt Wallace, one of our most experienced project managers, to take over Psyche project management role. We've also added great leadership in systems engineering, in guidance, navigation, and control, GN&C, and several other places on the project. So when we came to headquarters for the review of the Psyche replan, we had a team fully staffed with very experienced folks. We also added, in alignment with the IRB recommendations, a chief engineer to the Psyche team who is an extremely experienced JPLer. So I believe that, and I am new in leadership, and we have new leadership at the directorate level as well. So all of us are very focused on appropriate insight and oversight and making sure that leadership is engaged at the level that it needs to be to make Psyche successful and also to make our other missions successful. I think your other questions were really around hiring and retention, which again is not a challenge that's unique to JPL. I think across, the good news is our aerospace industry is really booming, and that's making it challenging for all of us. We all need to be redoubling our efforts to make sure that we're bringing in the talent we need, and more importantly, that once that talent is here, that we're giving them great work to do and making sure that they're being mentored by more senior folks. And so we're very, very focused on that here at JPL. We've been focused on making sure our salaries are competitive, on making sure that our benefits are competitive, at making sure that folks have great work to do and a supportive environment to do it in. This needs to be a place where everyone can thrive, and I'm extremely committed to that. So we are working that challenge. We're facing into that challenge each and every day, and we're doing well. We are able to hire great folks, and we'll be continuing to do that. And for anyone out there that might be interested in joining us here, you can go to the JPL Jobs website and become a part of our great community.
Thank you so much, Lori. That was Lori Leshin speaking. This next one is probably for Lori Glaze, and it's another one that came up in our previous meeting, which is what are the impacts for the Venus program in general, given that there will be a Veritas delay. We obviously have several other Venus missions that we are involved with and supporting, and how will this plan go forward?
Great. It's a great question, Karen. Yeah, this is Lori Glaze. Let me take this one. So first off, before I talk to that, I'd just like to make a quick comment that I do know that having a delay of this kind and a suspended time period of 3 years for the Veritas project is really a challenging thing for the PI and her team, Sue Smrekar. I know they've worked so hard. I just wanted to recognize the human element of this, that it's more than, this is more than just a line in our program. These are people and individuals that have worked so hard. So just wanted to acknowledge that. But I'm really pleased that by postponing, we are able to retain that key science that Veritas is going to provide, namely the incredible high-resolution topography and the geophysics that they'll be able to do, as well as the surface emissivity that will be collected. So I know it's going to be a fantastic mission. I also want to say, we continue to have a robust portfolio for Venus. This includes, of course, in addition to Veritas, the Da Vinci mission that is set to launch, I believe, in the 29 timeframe. Again, we're working towards confirmation, so we don't have a confirmed schedule, but they're working towards a date in 29. And then we have a significant contribution to the ESA-led Envision mission, which is also set to launch in that 2031 timeframe. So the combined science from these three missions is really incredible. I think we will get more than the sum of the parts by having all of these three missions operating in approximately the same time frame. Will be incredibly powerful for understanding Venus. And I think this will be really, really exciting.
Thank you so much. Again, media, feel free to dial *1 if you have more questions. Otherwise, there is, because I've been consolidating questions from the other one, there's really just one more that I think we need to make sure that we get to, and then we may be wrapping up. So that one extra question is a little bit more about what the IRB found in terms of the software, and knowing that this was an issue. What did the IRB find on why that was surfaced, or nobody had talked about it sooner rather than later? So again, Tom Young is here, and he may jump in, and then if others wish to jump in, please do.
The failure to recognize the software problem in adequate time to implement corrective action to support the launch schedule was one of the really significant failures in the overall Psyche communication activity. Our finding was that the people at the working level had a pretty good appreciation that there were significant problems. They were in being able to communicate that at the senior levels of the project. And largely because there was a culture that we observed at the senior level of the project saying, you got to prove to me there's a problem before I'm going to go assume that there's a problem. But above and beyond on the project, there was the things that we've been talking about, the staffing issues, the large amount of demands on the time of senior management and line organization personnel really compromised the amount of time that they had available to effectively penetrate or become engaged in the flight project. So it was not recognized at the higher levels because of, as I said, really the lack of digging into the project. The other item that's around it is the management information system, which we found to be significantly lacking, was really not adequate to highlight the problem. And then an item that is I think, important to also recognize, Laurie's talked about it, others have, the COVID impact. And COVID impacted the kind of the informal way that projects function as well as the formal way that projects function. The informal way is a lot of walking around, a lot of dropping into people's offices, asking how things are going. But the other observation that we made, and those of us who have spent over our professional careers a lot of time at JPL have long recognized, and that is that JPL has a highly integrated workforce that socializes informally during the work environment, which makes in-person very important, to put a side note on that. And fundamentally, it's almost impossible to get something beyond or that the total workforce at JPL doesn't understand. In other words, there's a lot of discussion between projects of, hey, you know about our problem, this problem, the other problem, and the net result of that is that's an informal safety net that is of extreme value. And COVID fundamentally eliminated that safety net with the lockdown that happened, and also eliminated the walk-arounds and the drop-ins that took place. So this communication problem, while serious, while deserving incredible attention, which it is getting, has a lot of causes. And COVID was one. The staffing demands on management was one. The communication breakdown between the people working on at the working level of the project and the higher levels of the project is one. And that's something that we had a lot of recommendations about, and it's something that JPL is obviously taking very seriously and is very much a part of their corrective actions for Psyche.
Lori Leshin, I want to give you a chance to weigh in if you wish to.
I'm fine, actually. I think Tom covered it quite well.
Great. All right, just a warning. Unfortunately, Thomas Urbuchen did have to leave us at the half-hour mark, so if there are questions for him, we will certainly try to pass them to him. We do have one more media question, and then we are probably going to wrap up for today. So Marcia Smith with Space Policy Online, we'll pass it to you for your question.
Thanks for giving me a second opportunity. I'm calling on a different phone, so I hope you can hear me better this time. My question, I think, is for Lori Leshin, and it's along those same lines. As the brand new director of JPL, but someone who knows it well, when you look at this report, would you characterize it as a wake-up call, full of surprises that you hadn't anticipated, or do you see it mostly as something that will just require a few tweaks that was mostly driven by COVID and the effects of COVID?
Perhaps somewhere in between. I think, look, there are issues that we need to address, and JPL has a long history of rising to the occasion when there are issues to address. And so, I'm happy to be here within this incredible community, and I'm really confident that they're going to meet the moment. So I'm looking forward to, leveraging this as well as the input that I've been getting from literally thousands of JPLers since I've been here, to make this place better. And we should always want to be better, and this is going to help us do it. And for that reason, I appreciate the opportunity to sort of have this happen early in my tenure here, so that we can make sure as we're making changes that we're doing so appropriately while respecting the incredible foundation, the incredible history of this place, which just turned 86 years old on Halloween Day. That's our birthday at JPL, and I know has many generations of future leadership ahead.
Thank you so much. I feel like that's a lovely note to end on, Lori. Thank you for all of our participants today. I'm going to give somebody one more chance to ask a question. Ken Chang just jumped in at the last minute, so I will offer you another chance to weigh in, but I will call it at this point for the last question, and thank you all. But Ken, please.
Thanks, Karen. A quick question for Lori Glaze. Is there an updated for Psyche? Thanks.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again? It kind of cut out right at the key part.
Is there an updated cost number for Psyche?
That is a great question, and I will tell you that you may have heard Thomas say, but I'll repeat it here. It was really important that we make a as quick as of a decision about continuing Psyche as we could within, making sure that we had all of the right information and the ability to assess their plan forward. But really important that we get them moving towards a new launch date, when they were continued, in order to be successful. Removes the ambiguity, it keeps the team moving, and helps get them towards that new launch in October of 2023. So we do have, we did work with the team on the estimates for the development costs, but I can tell you with some honesty that I think we will need to do some more work on looking at the Phase E costs. There are some changes. The new launch opportunity is going to have a different cruise time, and then once we arrive, the conditions are different when we arrive at Psyche, and so there will be some changes in the operations once we get there. And so the team really need to go off and look at those numbers and come back with a good proposal that will assess well in advance of launch. So we do expect in the coming months to take a look at that in more detail. So I'm not able to give you a new number right at this time, but we will have more detail once we have gone through those Phase E costs and at a later date.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone for participating. I know for those who participated in both events today, it's been a good long hour and 40 minutes. So thank you for those who have listened and paid attention, and thank you to our speakers for that. As a reminder, the full report and NASA's response is up at nasa.gov/reports. And we will have additional information. The WebEx is going to be posted at science.nasa.gov. We'll get the exact URL out when that is up. Some of the social media teams may have already posted that for you. And with that, thank you so much. If you had a follow-up question, you may feel free to contact me, Karen Fox, and we'll see what kinds of answers we can get for you. Thanks so much and have a great day. Bye.